Welcome, everybody. I am Dr. Brandon Lundell. Thanks for joining me today on the supplement savvy and how to take supplements effectively. This is a seminar or a webinar, a talk, if you will, that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and it's something that I've repeated a lot for my patients and for my student doctors and for people who want to know more about supplements and how to take them. So let me share my screen. Since I'm sharing my screen, I won't be able to see anybody. Let's get started. And thanks everybody for taking some time out. So one of the main reasons why I wanted to, well, a little bit about me first. All right, so most of you know who I am. I've been practicing and teaching functional medicine for almost 20 years. I've written many articles. I formulate nutraceuticals for nutraceutical companies. Supplements are something that's near and dear to my heart because they're so effective, but there's so much misunderstanding around them and misconceptions and pseudoscience. So I wanted to just give a brief and concise lecture to clear up some of those misconceptions and to make supplements easier. I'm going to introduce supplements, why they're important in a functional medicine context. Again, there's a lot of misconception around what supplements do, and there's multiple ways to use supplements in your own life and in your practice. So some of you are doctors out there. A lot of you are doctors and practitioners. Some of you are patients or just lay people wanting to be healthier. So I'm going to make this simple to understand for everybody. I'm going to talk about why supplements are so important in the first place. We have this modern nutritional gap, and there's really no other way of addressing that modern nutritional gap other than supplementation. So I'll talk about why that is. We'll talk about how to get the most out of supplements. There's different timing of supplements, and there's things that some supplements compete with each other. So I'll go through the most common mistakes that people make when they're supplementing. And I see it all the time. Patients come to me and they're on a supplement regimen, and yet it's not working for several different reasons. And so we'll go into that. And I see it in my functional medicine mentorship as well. Practitioners have a hard time developing effective protocols and educating their patient on the right timing. And so patients don't get the results that they're wanting. So that's something that's really, really important. And we'll talk about, choosing quality supplements. How do we choose quality supplements? How do we know that that they have in them what they say that is in them? And I'll focus on kind of the 5 or 6 most important supplements that I think everyone should be taking. So, and more just of my experience of 25 years of practice and education. So first and foremost, how do supplements fit into a functional medicine model? Supplements should never, and it was never designed to be, were never designed to be a standalone treatment. We're not treating high blood pressure with just a supplement, right? That's kind of the worst way to take supplements, and it's the worst way to learn supplementation too for practitioners out there. Even with lab values, saying something, we have elevated calcium. We should take these supplements. Lowered calcium, we should take these supplements in the blood test. That's the worst way of taking and learning to prescribe supplements. Supplements should fit into a greater context, and functional medicine at its core addresses what's really happening underneath the body or what's underneath a symptom. So it's really about making the correct diagnosis first, and then applying these supplements and nutraceuticals into what I call the 3-legged stool model. And what that means is that the reason why I use this is because if any one leg is missing, then the whole stool is going to fall over. So we have the nutrition leg, which is diet and supplementation. And we have the lifestyle leg, which is things like sleep and meditation, your work-life balance, your environmental and toxin exposure, your social connections. All of those are part of the exercise that you do on a daily basis. And then sort of this professional support leg, that's, how we use technology, infrared saunas and hyperbaric oxygen, red light therapy, acupuncture, chiropractic, and, just kind of the educational support that you get. We can't do ourselves. We do need a team. So it's kind of that team leg and technology leg. So running labs and things like that. and getting deeper into what's really going on in the body. So supplementation is only one part of that, but it's crucial, and most people do it, I wouldn't say wrong, but not effectively. So why do supplements matter in the first place? I mean, we know that there's lots of studies that show how they lower all-cause mortality, and they increase optimal function of the body and body processes. It helps you be healthier and smarter, and get through your day in a better way. But why should we need supplements? One of the things I always hear is, can't we get enough from our food? And the fact is, we really can't get enough from our food. So there's what I call this modern nutritional gap that we have. And the first part of the gap is what we're not getting, right? And so we have nutrient depleted soils, and our soils have been depleted, since the 20s and 30s over farming practices. And now we have genetically engineered organisms, and we have pesticide use and herbicide use. Pesticides and herbicides like glyphosate, their whole main mechanism of action is to bind nutrients in the soil that make it less likely for weeds to grow. And then you have the pesticides that usually are damaging to the nervous system. So the food, even if we ate perfectly, we just can't get enough from it. The foods themselves contain hundreds of times, in some cases, less than it did 100 years ago or 150 years ago. The other reason why we have this modern nutritional gap is food is delivered to us, and we consume food in a much different way than we have been designed to take in food. So long transportation times. At the average time of picking a food, a vegetable, for example, and consuming it is 2 to 3 weeks. And studies show that when you pick a fruit or you harvest a vegetable, every 24 hours, the amount of antioxidants in that food decreases by half. And the reason why is because it's now cut off from its source and from its nutrients, so it's having to protect itself. So do the math. After 2 or 3 weeks, there's not a lot of there's still some, and we still have to eat right, but there's not enough to fill that modern nutritional gap. And an example of that is vitamin C. Humans are omnivores, much like a lot of mammals are. But we are the only mammal on the planet that does not make our own vitamin C, right? We don't make any vitamin C. We have to consume it through our diet. And the reason why that's happened over the evolutionary times is because we would eat things fresh. We would eat things as soon as they were picked. We would eat the animal as soon as the animal was killed. And even in more medieval times, if you will, we would still have farmers markets and things. We didn't have refrigeration. So the advent of refrigeration and keeping things stored long periods of time, that really impacts the availability of nutrients. So vitamin C is a good example because most people are vitamin C deficient. We don't get enough vitamin C from our food, and that's why most mammals make, on average, if we were to translate it to a 150-pound person, 3,000 milligrams per day. And most humans only consume, a couple of hundred of milligrams a day, if they're lucky. So that vitamin C is a major antioxidant, and that's one of the reasons why we have that modern nutritional gap and we have more diseases, because we are walking around with more oxidative stress and more inflammation. So that's a really important point to remember. An orange only contains about 100 milligrams of vitamin C. So getting 3,000 milligrams from our diet was possible when we ate a lot of fresh foods, but it's impossible today. So that's not just a plug for vitamin C, but that's just an example of many different nutrients that we don't get from our food that we used to get from our food. So we have more need and more demands than we ever have had before in the history of humankind. So we have toxins that we get exposed to on a daily basis, hundreds of thousands of toxins. All of those toxins that we're exposed to require more nutrients to process and more nutrients to deal with the side effects of that. So that becomes a real issue. So this is the gap. We have deficient soils, we have long transportation times, we have storage and preservation, we have toxins. Also, now we have leaky gut syndrome. So many people have leaky gut, and it starts in utero, and there's many different reasons for leaky gut, but a hallmark of leaky gut is that you don't absorb nutrients, whether it's in food or even a supplement, which is what I'm going to talk about today, how to get the most out of your supplements, even if you do have leaky gut. So there are a lot of things that you can do that can help with that. And supporting leaky gut and healing leaky gut becomes really, really important in getting the most out of your supplements. So that's the gap that we're dealing with. And then there's many reasons why we have leaky gut. In utero influences, sugar consumption, and that's the other reason our food is so processed, and that processes out all of the nutrients. Our stress and stress hormones, medications and antibiotics, insufficient probiotics, inadequate fiber. These are also one of the main reasons why most of us are walking around without enough nutrients in our body. So we do need that supplementation, and that's what supplements really do. Now that we've established sort of the why do we need supplements? It really is impossible to have optimal health if you are not taking good quality supplements. I didn't make the rules, but you can shoot the messenger if you want, but that is the key. And many studies have confirmed that, and reducing your all-cause mortality. There's also reasons that people need more supplements too, or more nutrients. If you're an athlete, or if you're really high functioning and you're traveling a lot, all of that increases your need as well. So now let's get into the what to take, or what supplements do you choose? There's a lot of confusion around which supplements to take and from which companies. And that is why I always recommend people get supplements from a healthcare practitioner like myself. My job as a healthcare practitioner, one of my main services to my community and to my patients, is to make sure and do the research that the supplements that I offer and that I recommend have been third-party tested. These supplements companies really do that I use make a huge effort into creating supplements, not only in their formulations, but in their manufacture, that are effective and that are quality, because I wouldn't have a job if what I recommended didn't work, right? That's not going to help. So my significant portion of my time and research on a daily basis goes into and has for the last 25 years, what supplements really work and what are the right formulations, and what companies really make quality number one. And so there's a misconception that supplement industry is not regulated. It's actually regulated the exact same as the pharmaceutical industry. It's just that the FDA doesn't have a lot of resources to enforce that, and so it really is up to the industry to regulate itself. But the set of regulations and the consequences of not following those can be pretty severe. It really comes down to, do you source the ingredients properly? And is your manufacturing processes really, meant to preserve those quality ingredients? So there's been a disturbing trend in the last, I would say, 10 years of supplements. Pharmaceutical companies and large companies have bought up a lot of the smaller companies, and now they're kind of centralizing production. And what's happened is it keeps costs down, but there's only a few manufacturers in the country now of supplements. So when you walk into GNC, or you walk into Target, or you walk into Costco, a lot of these have been, they're different brands, but they're actually produced in the exact same plant. And what's happened is these companies are sourcing ingredients from China. These are cheap ingredients. So vitamin C is a perfect example. And they're it's all from China. It's all synthesized. It's not natural. So I like natural vitamin C from the sago palm, or most of it's from GMO corn, and it has a lot of contaminants. So the certificate of analysis that's supplied by these Chinese resources, they're all, it may show that, okay, the certificate of analysis shows how many milligrams is in a certain sample, but it doesn't test for herbicides and pesticides, and it might test for heavy metals because that's standard, but it doesn't test for all of the things that end up getting in there because of the manufacturing process, the amount of plastics and microplastics that get in there, and the transportation problems. And it may have looked one way in China, but on the boat over here and getting hot and not really being at all, preserved properly, that significantly affects the quality of it. And so we see that, and that's a disturbing trend. So I am very adamant that most of my supplements in my practice come from companies that are large enough to source the right ingredients, but small enough that they haven't been bought out, and they do it right. So it's important that you, as a manufacturer, and all of the manufacturers that I recommend do this, they actually look at the certificate of analysis, and they make sure that, and they do their own certificate of analysis, and both pre-manufacturer and post-manufacturer. So that's really, really important. There's also a lot of bad players out there that, so in 2009, this is just the most dramatic. It hasn't changed a whole lot. So in 2009, the New York Attorney General actually went to Target, went to Costco, went to GNC, and they did a random sampling of supplements. And they found that 60% of them actually did not contain any of the active ingredient that it said. And many of them actually contained houseplants, meaning that it just, they just threw whatever into the grinder, and just to fill it up, and that's what you're taking in. So again, it's really important to know where you're getting your supplements, and to get it from a healthcare practitioner and from a reputable source. The Consumer Reports is also a very good place, and you can get online, you can subscribe, and Consumer Reports does a lot of this, spot testing, and it's pretty concerning how many supplements have. Most of the time they don't have enough or very little of the active ingredient. Sometimes they have too much. So how do you know how to dose it correctly? So that's why practitioner grade supplements really, really do matter. And our detoxification demands, this is another reason why we want to choose quality supplements. We don't want to have more toxins in the supplements than our body is already having to deal with, right? Our modern nutritional gap is very hard on the liver, which is why liver support is one of my have-tos for everybody. Everyone should be on some kind of liver support. A little bit into how we use supplements now, all right? So there's a difference between using an ingredient as a supplement and using it as a nutraceutical. So a supplement is the true meaning of the word supplement. It is to bring something back into its normal levels, to supplement the diet. Vitamin D is a good example, or vitamin C is a good example. B vitamins are a good example of that. Things that are normally supposed to be in our body, but we are deficient in them. So that's the true word of supplement. But we also can use supplements as a nutraceutical. And what we're talking about there are either things that are naturally in the body, like N-acetylcysteine or cysteine, but we use them in supraphysiological amounts, right? Higher doses. Grapeseed extract is another example. Dosing much higher than would normally be achieved through the diet to elicit a specific response. And this is the science and the biochemistry of nutraceuticals. So much like a pharmaceutical, it's a drug, if you will, or has a specific drug effect. But unlike a pharmaceutical, nutraceuticals usually have very little, if no side effect profile or detrimental side effect profile. And they elicit usually a response that helps the body heal and overcome some kind of abnormal physiological process, whereas a drug usually stops a physiological process. Nutraceutical supports physiological processes, but we use the term nutraceutical because we are doing it in supraphysiological amounts. And that's really important. The reason why I say this is because it's important to use the right terms. So are we using it as a supplement? Are we using it as a nutraceutical? That also changes how we take it and how long we take it. So sometimes nutraceuticals, you don't need very high amounts for forever. Whereas a supplement, some supplements, if you want to be optimally healthy, you should take for the rest of your life, especially if we look at genetic SNPs. And looking at a SNP is a single nucleotide polymorphism. It's genetic differences. And the most common that we talk about is methylation. About 60% of people have an abnormal or suboptimal methylation process in the body. And while that doesn't, mean that you're going to have an awful childhood. I mean, it can if it's severe. It does mean that you're going to age worse, and have more propensity for diseases and dementia and Alzheimer's and cancers and things like that. So knowing your genetic predisposition and then getting your labs done and getting labs done yearly or getting labs done every so often is really, really important to make sure that you are optimizing your physiology. So that's how we use supplements and nutraceuticals. There also is a really important point here in the literature. There are therapeutic thresholds for nutraceuticals and supplements as well. So when we look at a study, a preventative dose might be 600 milligrams a day, but a therapeutic dose to help reverse a process in the body or to support a process in the body might be triple or quadruple that. And so it's really important as doctors out there, practitioners, and as patients to know if you're truly getting a therapeutic dose. You need a therapeutic dose. So this is one of the most common misconceptions that I have to help practitioners overcome in my mentorship classes is, you look at a supplement bottle and it might have 20 different things in there and they all seem really cool, right? It's got grapeseed extract, it's got curcumin, it's got lipoic acid, and it's got resveratrol, and it's got fish oils, and it's got vitamin D. It looks really, really, really good. With the exception of a multivitamin, that is my usually number one red flag of a supplement because there's so many things in there. And while there is a synergistic benefit to all of them in one supplement, none of those are really going to reach therapeutic thresholds in the body. And so you really are wasting your money if you're taking a supplement that has a million different things in it. Like I said, with the exception of maybe a multivitamin or a multimineral, that you can put a lot of things in there because active, ingredients are very, very, take up a very small amount of space. But usually things like green tea extract or curcumin, they take up a good amount of space. To get therapeutic levels, you're going to need to look for formulations that, only have 3 or 4 or maybe 5 things in them that target a specific system in the body. So I'll go through also the fact that everybody needs a multivitamin and everyone needs these cofactors to make the nutraceuticals work. So you should never supplement with or give a nutraceutical or take a nutraceutical without making sure that your supplements are balanced and fortified, because these are the cofactors that make the nutraceuticals work. Does that make sense? So as an example, if you want to take N-acetylcysteine in high doses, that helps your body make glutathione, which is your body's major antioxidant. But it requires a whole host of machinery in your body that needs cofactors. It needs B vitamins, B6 and B12 and riboflavin, and it needs minerals, zinc and magnesium and molybdenum. And if you don't have those cofactors, you could take all the nutraceuticals you want and it's not going to be very effective. So it really, putting all of this together is so important to achieve good clinical outcomes. And here I'm going to introduce the area under the curve concept. Why it's important not to just dose the right amount according to studies, but to get something that we call area under the curve. And the area under the curve is when you take a supplement and it gets absorbed into your body and into your blood, you get a peak rise. But then over time, the half-life, it gets metabolized, it gets used up, it gets excreted, and then it goes down usually after a few hours. So if you just take things once a day, right, then the area under the curve is only one peak. But if you take things twice a day, right, then you get a second peak and you quadruple the area under the curve, which is the amount of time and the amount of nutraceutical that your cells is being exposed to. And that's the therapeutic benefit. So we use therapeutic dose response curves, but we also use the timing principle, and doing split dosing is very, very, very important for most supplements. And I'm going to talk about which supplements it is most important for and which supplements that it's not so important for. But this is how we achieve optimal health. This is how we reverse disease. This is how we become optimally healthy and happy. As I said, common formulation issues are when you just have too much of the same, too many things into one bottle. So take a minute here to talk about some storage and handling of supplements. So probiotics is a good example. There's a lot of myths that you need to refrigerate it, and yes, it does help with potency. But typically, if you're going to consume a probiotic within a month or two at the most, it's fine. It doesn't need to be in the refrigerator. But most supplements are light and heat sensitive, so keeping them in a drawer, keeping them in a cupboard. It's if they get exposed for a day or two, that's fine. But if you leave them in the car, obviously that's going to be a problem. Also, some tips and tricks when you travel versus home storage. I use the containers that I use are glass containers, and there's really two ways to divvy out your supplements, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Some people just leave them in the bottle and take them, once or twice a day, just go to the bottle and take them out. That's kind of how I do it because I've been doing it my whole life. But some people like to set their regimen out for the week. Or even month. And if you're going to do that, I think using glass containers is really important, or even cloth containers. There's a company called Eco Diddy, and these are organic cloth like sandwich bags, reusable. So you can put them in there as well. Typically, supplements aren't going to oxidize if you leave them out of the bottle. They're not going to oxidize significantly within a few days or a week. So it doesn't need to be in the bottle. Typically, these recommendations are for the storage, manufacturing, and long-term storage of supplements. So let's talk about some key timing principles that can help you maximize what you're getting out of your supplements. So the number one principle here is that it's better in the body than it is in the bottle. All right. So I'm going to talk about some ideals and when you should take it and when you shouldn't take it. I know this is hard for some people, especially if they're just starting out with supplements, or they have a hard time with supplements and they have a hard time with swallowing supplements. All of that can make taking supplements, there's a lot of resistance to that, and it makes it less than fun. I'm very grateful for the supplements. I love taking supplements, so I don't mind doing it. But remember, you don't have to do it perfectly. It's better, even if you just take it once a day, it's still better than not taking it all. So even if you are supposed to take it with food, and I'll talk about what's your better with food and without food, but you miss it and it's a half hour after the meal, still take it. It's better to get it in the body than to skip a dose altogether. So are you going to maximize your absorption? Okay, maybe not. You might be, missing a few 10%, but it's still better than missing that 90%. Okay. So, as I said, multiple daily dosing is extremely important. The main exception to that rule is with fat-soluble vitamins. Fat-soluble vitamins you can take once a day. You can even take every other day because they get absorbed and they get stored into fat tissue. Whereas most of these other supplements and nutraceuticals are water soluble. They get into the body, they get into the side of the cell, and they're excreted pretty quickly. They're used, but they're not stored in the same way that fat soluble vitamins are. And so it's important to take them twice a day. And, there's that old saying, are supplements just expensive urine? Well, my response to that is it may be expensive. There's a lot of supplements. When you take supplements, it does go into the urine, but that just proves that your body absorbed it and utilized what it could. So that's the best insurance that you have, is to making sure that your urine has a lot of nutrients in it. So, so yeah, it might be expensive urine, but that means your tissues got the benefit from it. So we'll talk about vitamin C is a really important one. And again, I will get to my top ones that I think everyone should have, and vitamin C is certainly one of them. So on average, the max absorption of a single dose is around 250 milligrams. So now if you take 500 milligrams, you're still absorbing 80% of that. So it's still, it's still good to take 500 milligrams. But if you take 1,000 milligrams, it's less than 50%. So, you don't want to then you're just, again, wasting money. You're just you truly are just pooping that out or peeing that out because it's not really getting absorbed. So to me, having the supplements in the poop is more damaging than having it in the urine, right? Because it means you didn't absorb it much if it's in your stool versus in your urine. The only way it can get in your urine is if it's got absorbed into the body and into the blood, and then the blood delivers it to the tissues. So I recommend, I mean, you can do 250, the ideal. So that's the other thing. There's an ideal and then there's the life ordeal. Just do the best you can. I'm going to give you the ideal if you want to maximize the benefit, and then you hash out the ordeal and what works in daily life. Remember the principle: it's better in the body than in the bottle. So, so yeah, if you want to do 250 milligrams every 4 hours, that's great. You can do 500 milligrams twice a day. On average, I think 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams is minimum. So if you want to do 2,000, you do 500 milligrams 4 times a day. But even 500 milligrams twice a day is a good maintenance dose if you're healthy, if you're eating well. But if you're trying to reverse disease, if you're trying to support adrenal, as an example, it's interesting that before vitamin C was synthesized in the 1940s or extracted from vitamin C, the biochemistry was delineated. The treatment for scurvy, which is severe vitamin D deficiency, was to give the adrenal glands of an animal to the person with scurvy, because there's so much vitamin C concentrated in the adrenal glands. And the adrenal glands are a highly metabolically active tissue. It requires a lot of antioxidants. The heart has a lot of vitamin C in it. The brain has a lot of vitamin C in it. So we want to have that amount of vitamin C throughout the day, so our tissues are preserved, our tissues are protected, even in times of stresses and even in times of nutrient toxin exposure. So if you're healthy and you're doing well, then 500 milligrams twice a day. But if you are trying to treat an adrenal deficiency or a heart, post-stroke, or inflammation in the heart, or chronic fatigue, then you want to do 500 milligrams at least 4 times a day. So that increases that area under the curve. Vitamin D is the exception, one of the exceptions, because it's a fat-soluble vitamin. The optimal dose absorption is 5,000 IUs. It used to be given in hospitals in about 50,000 IUs, like once a week. That used to be considered okay. But much like vitamin C, if you get 5,000 IUs, you're going to absorb about 80% of that. If you do 50,000 IUs, you're only going to absorb, maybe 40% of that. While that's more than 5,000 IUs, you're wasting a lot of that. It's just not getting absorbed. And if you eat, and this is a really this is a common mistake that people make. You must take vitamin D with a meal, and there should be some fat in that meal, because fat soluble vitamins need bile. And bile is only secreted when there's fat in the meal. You should take vitamin D with fish oils. You should take vitamin D with some avocado, some nuts. There should be some olive oil. There should be some fat in the meal to stimulate the bile so that it absorbs it. I've seen time and time again people taking 10,000 IUs a day, and they're taking it on an empty stomach. And when we do their blood work, they're still relatively deficient. I mean, they're still going to absorb 10% of it, so they're not completely deficient, but that's a waste of a lot of money. And that's one of the main reasons why I'm giving this seminar, is to use your dollar as effectively as possible. So there's some studies that show evening dosing, so afternoon or evening, gets absorbed better and is more aligned with the circadian rhythm. Why is that? Because if we get exposed to light, it can take hours to synthesize vitamin D. So the idea is that if we take it in the afternoon or evening, we're mirroring the vitamin D levels that go up during the day. But you don't want to take vitamin D necessarily at night, because then that would peak your vitamin D blood levels, during bedtime and during sleep. And that there's some studies that show that can affect your circadian rhythm. So taking vitamin D at least in the morning or in the afternoon is better than taking it at night. So there you go. I just increased your absorption, up to 60% there of vitamin D, and that can save you a lot of money. Even though vitamin D isn't the most expensive one out there, over time that can add up for sure. Yeah, it's interesting. that people just sometimes don't know these little things that can optimize it. Fish oil is another one. Evening dosing shows about 15 to 20% better absorption in some studies. The theoretical basis of that is you have an enhanced lymphatic transport during the day, right? Because you're moving around, and these fat soluble vitamins and nutrients. Again, fish oil with a food because it's a fat. But then they get absorbed and they actually get transported more through the lymphatic system, or as much through the lymphatic system as it does through the blood system. So that's why here is an important point too, of walking or exercising a little bit after a meal is really important. So you do. And studies show it lowers blood sugar, but walking after a meal for maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes, a half hour is, gosh, one of the best things you can do to absorb nutrients, to absorb your food, to lower your blood sugar, and to deliver those nutrients to the tissues, and not just sitting in the liver or sitting in the gut. So, and multiple doses are better than a large single dose. My max of a single dose is about 2 grams of EPA and DHA. So you want to, also spread those out, at least in the ideal is 3 times a day. So, and fish oil is another really good supplement versus nutraceutical. We can use it as a supplement, and you only need 1 to 2 grams a day. If your diet's good, you're feeling well, you're functioning optimally, then you don't need a lot of fish oils to keep your essential fatty acids in balance. You don't. But if you're using it to overcome inflammation, to overcome heart disease, to overcome, some body process that, pain in the joints, and using it as an anti-inflammatory, then you want 3 to 9 grams a day, and you should spread that out. If you're treating depression, it responds really well, and anxiety responds really well to essential fatty acid. But you have to know how to do it, and you have to know how to time it. So really important. And you can see this study here that when you take it with meals and and you time it right, you get a much, much better absorption than if you just took it on an empty stomach. So practical organization. I'll come back to this. I already did talk about this, your weekly preparation and your container systems, separating out morning and evening. And then when you travel, I travel with supplements, and I'll put them in the cloth baggies so that it's not just in a Ziploc baggie. But even a Ziploc baggie is better than, at home. So traveling with your supplements, that's actually when you need them even more, because your body's getting exposed to more toxins, and if you're jet lagged and you're crossing time zones, the body needs even more support there. So here are my essential supplements for optimal health. And remember, if you guys have questions, please put them in, and I'll get to them at the end. As I said before, everyone needs a multivitamin and a multimineral. You can't fit enough multiminerals. So we're talking about not just magnesium and your electrolytes, magnesium and potassium and zinc, but you need the trace minerals as well, selenium and vanadium and chromium. Those need to be in a separate mineral as well, because while there may be some minerals in a multivitamin, it's really impossible to get enough. Now, omega-3s, fatty acids, like I said, both as a supplement and as a nutraceutical, depending on where you are in your health journey. Vitamin D and K, obviously. Vitamin C as well, so other antioxidants, vitamin C, vitamin E. Probiotics to support gut, and also just gut support, maybe glutamine and N-acetylcysteine. Liver detox. Everybody needs some level of liver detox support on a daily basis, whether that is a whole liver support formula with milk thistle and burdock root, or just making sure that you're taking enough methylation support and antioxidants. N-acetylcysteine is another one that's really, really important for on a daily basis, I believe. 750 to 1,500 milligrams a day of N-acetylcysteine has been shown to reduce your all-cause mortality over the course of a lifetime by about 30 to 40%. Other antioxidants are really important. CoQ10 is one that comes to mind that's really important. Acetyl L-carnitine is really important. And then other anti-inflammatories like resveratrol and curcumin. This is our modern nutritional gap and what we're dealing with on a daily basis with stressors and toxins and trying to keep up with our life, right? And this study here, while it may seem like, oh, there's not much of a difference, this is one study that showed taking just a multivitamin over the course of a few years versus placebo, you could see how much higher cancer rates started to separate the longer you took it. So this is just a good example of, as if you take supplements, the longer you take them, the greater benefit you're going to have. The gap between disease and health dramatically diverge over time, and taking supplements, and this is just a multivitamin. If we added probiotics and we added vitamin D and we added omega-3s, we would see a much, much, much higher. And this is just cancer. And cancer is sort of the last, major thing that shows up when you're unhealthy or you've got, the genetics that predispose you to it. If we were to look at lowered risk for Alzheimer's, lowered risk for cardiovascular disease, that would be a much bigger gap. And if we were to look at preserving optimal function over time, higher income earnings when you take vitamins over time, higher education, your brain is able to think clearer, your work life is much longer, you're more active, you're more productive throughout your lifetime when you take quality supplements. And that has been proven time and time again. So this is why I take probably about 75 different supplements a day, pills, I should say, not 75 different bottles of things, because that would be probably not getting therapeutic doses, but I'll share with you what I take on a daily basis at the end. But there's also some common interactions and timing that you want to be aware of. Iron and calcium both need hydrochloric acid. So taking iron and calcium and minerals and zinc, taking those on an empty stomach about 30 minutes before a meal is more effective than taking them, at the end of a meal or even, in between meals, but taking about 30 to 40 minutes before a meal. Remember though, it's better in the body than in the bottle. So even if you can't do that, it's okay. Taking them, most supplements are better absorbed with food. And most supplements are better absorbed at the beginning of a meal. So taking it about 15, 20 minutes before a meal dramatically increases absorption. Probiotics, there's some evidence that there's benefit taking them both with meals and without meals. So when you take it without a meal, in between meals, you get better colonization in the upper GI. When you take it with a meal, you get better colonization in the lower GI because it kind of gets mixed in with the food and the food gets moved down. When you take it with fiber, when you take it with a meal, it tends to just delay its absorption and delay where it gets into the body when the capsule breaks open. So doing, probiotics between meals, as long as they're hydrochloric acid tolerant, which most of them are these days, but also taking them with a meal too. So spacing it out and changing it up. So some you can do both and get a benefit for both. I already talked about vitamin D and vitamin K. Vitamin E is the same way, taking those with a meal. Already talked about fish oils. Melatonin. So there's some strategies for melatonin as well. So there's a lot of people have trouble falling asleep, and I run melatonin tests for a lot of my patients because I want to see where they're at. And melatonin is another example of supplement versus nutraceutical. Ask yourself, why are you taking melatonin? There's reasons to take melatonin above and beyond sleep issues. It increases your repair mechanisms. You could heal leaky gut. You can heal GERD. You can heal gastritis, and even ulcers. You can heal with melatonin, but it's really helpful for leaky gut. So using it as a nutraceutical to elicit a specific anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and healing response in the body. It's not just a circadian rhythm. The body actually secretes melatonin in the gut all day long. So if you do a melatonin study and you're looking at, are you not producing it in the evening when you should, right before bed, or are you not producing it at night? A lot of people have melatonin is secreted in the pineal gland as well as the gut. The pineal gland is what initiates the sleep cycle. So if you're having trouble going to sleep, okay, then you want a fast acting melatonin, something that's sublingual, something that gets absorbed very quickly in the body. But if you have trouble staying asleep, or the pineal gland can put out a small bolus right before bed, but it can't sustain it throughout the beginning. Most of the 80% of your melatonin is secreted in the first 3-4 hours of sleep. But as it wears out, and you didn't secrete enough, then you can wake up in the middle of the night. So you can take another quick acting when you wake up, or you can do a delayed response. And that's something that we can talk about too at the end, is how do we, instead of just area under the curve and taking things twice, there are some supplements that are complexed with wax and fiber and other slow release technology that allow it to absorb better. And there's some melatonin ones like that. But if you swallow a melatonin and you take it with a little bit of fiber, then that delays absorption by 90 minutes to 2 hours. So maybe taking a sublingual melatonin and then swallowing another melatonin and taking it with a little bit of carrot soup or something that's got some fiber in it, something that's easy to digest right before you go to sleep, but that can delay its absorption quite a bit. So that's what we call fiber-based strategies. And then again, timing strategies. You can take 2 to 3 hours before sleep if you're taking an oral slow release one, or you can do about, like I said, 70% immediate release. So maybe you're taking 1 milligram as an immediate release, and then you're taking another milligram with fiber. And that milligram, because you're taking it orally, some of it's going to get broken down. So you're probably only going to absorb about 300 micrograms or 30% of that. So, but that's a delayed response, and that's usually going to be enough. So, that's how sometimes we do those strategies as well. And then light suppression, really truly doing some things to make sure that your core temperature, you can increase your core temperature right before bed, and then that decrease triggers melatonin response. Making sure that you wear your blue light blocking glasses and no screens or no screens for a couple hours. Really, really important in triggering your own body's melatonin. And there's a lot of reasons why melatonin. This isn't a melatonin talk, so I'm going to move on, but a lot of people's pineal glands don't secrete the melatonin because of fluoride in the water, because of inflammation and oxidation, because of toxins, other toxins, pesticides and herbicides. Aluminum can cause calcification in the pineal gland as well. So, okay, let's move on. NAC is another one of my favorites, and it has different actions throughout the day. So if you take N-acetylcysteine during the day, it supports your glutathione mechanisms, and that's why it's important to take it throughout the day. But doing a dose right before bed along with vitamin C actually increases your ability to sleep and to repair when you sleep, because it actually acts as a glutamine glutamate balancer in the brain, and an NMDA receptor antagonist, which allows your brain to calm down. So it has many different effects in the body, and knowing that is great. So NAC is something that I see a lot of people taking it either not enough, or they're taking it, maybe at the wrong time. They're just taking it once a day, or taking it just in the morning. But I like evening dosing. It really enhances sleep. It helps the brain repair. It stimulates the glymphatic mechanisms in the brain to repair, and it's very, in and of itself, antioxidant. So here's some studies that show that it helps with REM sleep and really helps get you, better, more out of your sleep, better responses to things like melatonin when you sleep. So vitamin C, here's quercetin. So there's a concept between fat-soluble nutrients and water-soluble nutrients as nutraceuticals. So quercetin and grapeseed extract, those tend to be water-soluble. They can be done on an empty stomach, and it doesn't really matter that much whether it's with or without food. So sometimes in my protocols, I'll say, it's okay to take this with or without food. But things like curcumin is really, really important, because curcumin is a fat-soluble vitamin. And here I want to talk about, there's even the supplement industry engages in some suspicious manipulation of statistics and studies. And so when you see studies that say, oh, our curcumin is 2,000% higher area under the curve, what they're doing is they're comparing a regular fat soluble curcumin with taking without food, and that's known to limit its absorption. When we look at Indian cultures, and they use turmeric and in their food all the time, it is sautéed with oil. Because that they just known instinctively that you get more out of the turmeric when you grind it and then you use it as a powder, and it gets absorbed with coconut oil and coconut milk and things like that. So that's the basis of curries, and that's how you get absorption. No one's just munching on a turmeric root, although that's not bad for you. You're just not getting you're getting a lot of turmerones and stuff that way, but you're not getting a lot of the curcuminoids and the fat soluble things that require you to take it with fish oils and take it with a meal. So you can take any amount of turmeric and increase absorption 3, 4, 500% just by taking it with a meal. So now, one of the last things I'll say here is that patient education and educating yourself is really, really important. There's been studies that show they do this with drugs and they have done this with supplements. So let's say everyone has, in the study has high blood pressure and they're given a high blood pressure medication. One group is taught what the drug is or what the supplement is and how it works in the body. And you kind of become an expert in that. The other one just gets the supplement or drug and says, here, just take this. So not only does compliance increase with the group that got education, but something fascinating happens. And this is what we call the placebo effect. But the placebo effect is not a bad thing. It is, even when you compare the two groups, yes, compliance gets better and they have better outcomes. But even if you compare the group that didn't know anything about the drug or supplement with the group that did know a lot about the supplement and they took the exact same amount, this group that got educated had better results, even better results. No other changes. They took the exact same drug in the exact same amount and it worked better in their body. And this is sort of the mind over matter, the placebo effect, the biology of belief, many different ways of saying this. But it's important that when you take a supplement, you check your attitude a little bit. You check your, where you are at. So if you're taking supplements and you're like, oh, these are so expensive and I'm going to choke these down and I hate, this is such a pain. And how long do I have to take these things? They're not going to work in your body as much as if you read about, wow, CoQ10 is an antioxidant and it helps the brain and mitochondria and my brain's going to be smarter and I'm decreasing my chance of disease. I'm going to feel better. When you have that attitude and thank God these are here and this is amazing and yeah, they might be expensive, but thank God that this is an available therapeutic treatment that I have, and I'm not just suffering. So that attitude can make a big difference in your absorption and utilization. And many studies have shown that. So I really encourage my patients to read about the supplements. I try to educate them a little bit about the supplement. What really is it doing? What is it? What is CoQ10? Not just, oh, it's good for the heart. Why? What is it really doing in the body? It's an antioxidant. It helps the mitochondria, which makes energy in the body function better, which then helps the heart and helps the brain and helps chronic fatigue and all of that. So that's really an important point in that mind, excuse me, mind-body connection. So something to really think about and help with your patients if you're a practitioner or if you are, taking supplements out there. Just trying to have a good attitude about it. Creating routines, as I said, whether you do a weekly preparation or you just do your containers. I have supplements both at my office and at home, and I just double up. I have the same bottles at the office and I have the same bottles at home. It's not costing me more to do that. I'm not taking more supplements. I'm just sort of loading up at the beginning so that I have some at the office and I have some at my house. So when I'm at the house, I know how to, I know which ones I need to take. And when I'm at the office, I know which ones I need to take. So, but most people work better if you just lay them out. Here's my morning with food, my morning without food, my afternoon without food, my evening with food, and just creating that routine for yourself. And as I said, maintenance versus therapeutic dosing. If you truly are getting doing this in the best way possible, over time, you should be able to reduce the supplements that you're taking, unless you're dealing with a lot of, a lot of health issues, or you're trying to maximize, your health in many, many different ways. So there's that loading dose period, and then that decrease period over time. So, and I like to switch it up. I like to, the protocol adaptation. I do like to switch things up, and so nothing wrong with, for a month or so, focus on detox, and then another month I'm more focusing on brain support, and then another month I'm more focusing on gut and probiotic support. That's a really good way of sort of cycling through different things and getting a benefit of that. And with my patients, it's why I encourage them to come in, every month or two, and we can either do labs or muscle test, or, see how they're doing and adjust things accordingly to, how they're feeling and what's going on and what their body is needing. So really important. And I've been taking supplements for 25 years. And like I said, there's a lot of question out there about, there's one question that I got pre-webinar of, what about all of the inert ingredients? The magnesium stearate and the silicon dioxide and the cellulose in the vegetable capsules and stuff. And, while certainly they can be of concern, I haven't seen it to be, yes, you're going to absorb more magnesium stearate. That's a fatty acid. As long as your other fatty acids are in balance, doesn't seem to be a problem. The cellulose is a fiber, doesn't really get absorbed that well. Silicon dioxide is pretty inert, and gets excreted pretty readily. So while I'm not saying there's never any problem with those, I've been taking them for 25 years, and I don't have any problems. Yeah, no, I mean, they work if you know what they're doing, and the benefit far outweighs any risk. So my daily protocol is I usually get up and I take some glutamine. I take some without food supplements. Glutamine and amino acids work really well without food. So I'll take some glutamine. I'll take some amino acids. I might take some herbs too, maybe to just help get myself going. Some adaptogens like rhodiola, ginseng, and kind of first thing in the morning, just kind of better than a cup of coffee kind of thing. And I might take some antioxidants too, vitamin C. Then before breakfast, I'll, about 30 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes, I'll do my supplement regimen, vitamin C and some fish oils and my multivitamin, whatever else, some DHEA. I'll take DHEA. That's another fat soluble. If you're taking any kind of hormone like DHEA, or pregnenolone or progesterone, no one ever tells you to take it with fat and with a meal, but you absolutely should take it with a little bit of fat and with a meal, because it's a fat soluble, nutrient. It's a steroid fat-based molecule. So, so that's what I'll do. And then, I usually take a little bit more, some supplements. I'll take maybe another half of a multivitamin. You don't need a ton of multivitamins. But I'll do another maybe half of a multivitamin, and I'll do my CoQ10. I'll do more antioxidants in the beginning and the middle of the day. So that's where I'll do my CoQ10, and I'll do curcumin, and I'll do, lunch is usually a really light meal. Breakfast and lunch are light meals, but enough that helps me absorb everything. And then in the evening, I'll also take some brain support supplements during the day, acetyl L-carnitine, ginkgo, that kind of stuff. So my brain, stays sharp through the afternoon. And then in the evening, I don't take my multivitamin in the evening, because I'm pretty sensitive. I don't want to. There's about 10% of people, 15% of people that can have an issue with B vitamins later in the day. So I'll start taking maybe some more antioxidants, vitamin C, my minerals. Minerals are really good in the evening as well. Magnesium and some maybe some more amino acids and more antioxidants and anti-inflammatories, green tea extract, and those kinds of things. Decaffeinated, obviously. And then, right before bed, I usually don't need a lot, but I might take a little bit of melatonin if I'm stressed, or if my body's feeling a little run down. I'll take N-acetylcysteine and vitamin C. I'll take magnesium and zinc right before bed. Those tend to be absorbed and utilized better and increase growth hormone before bed. So that's kind of just a little bit of what we do. In the afternoon, I might do some more adaptogens and things like that. So key takeaways here. Supplements really are essential for filling that modern nutritional gap. We do need them, but quality and timing matter. Make sure that you're getting high quality ones, that your protocols are effective and complete. And the timing, is maximized for your absorption and your efficacy, and really tailor your supplement plan to what you can do. It's better in the body than in the bottle. This is just different ways to make your regimen more effective, and save you some money. So educate yourself, on what these supplements do. We're so grateful to have the availability of good quality supplements. And while there's a lot of crap out there and a lot of things that don't work, and there's a lot of pseudoscience out there, hopefully this has helped you sift through some of that, inspired you and made you more grateful that we have these available. And, hopefully this will help you adhere to your supplement plan even better to get the most out of the outcome. So thank you for spending the time with me today. I'm going to answer some questions. First, I want to talk about, though, if you're interested in learning more about supplements and about just, functional medicine, I've got two things that I'd like to share with you. So I've got a couple things that are upcoming. So I do a mentorship, and I've been doing a mentorship here for a couple of years, and I teach people how to really get the most out of their functional medicine practice. And the mentorship is one-on-one, as well as a group class, and it's been a lot of fun. A lot of people have taken it and gotten a lot out of it. And I only do it once or twice a year. So, those of you that are interested, I'm starting another one in February, so just in a couple of months here. And you get free lab tests. So those of you that sign up, you get 2 free doctor's data lab tests worth about $800. NutriWest is sponsoring it, and they give you $500 of free supplements. Professional Co-op has a free lab panel worth about $300. US Biotech has some discounted tests. So right there, you're saving half the cost of the mentorship. So we go through a lot of information. A lot of practitioners out there know a lot about functional medicine, but how do you take all that knowledge and implement it into a practice in a way that works? So we have bi-weekly group sessions, and then we have one-on-one private coaching sessions wherever you are, whether it's your own health or whether it's your patient consults, or, we can talk about your staffing, we can talk about laboratory evaluations, whatever it is. And you get a certificate at the end of it of the 6 months. And everyone who's taken it, these are a few people that have taken it, have gotten a tremendous amount out of it. Most of them had said they would pay double or triple for it, but I want to keep it affordable. So you can either do it $600 a month or one lump payment of $29.95. And you really, it's a lot of fun, and I love putting this class and this course together. And then I'm also giving a lecture, December 7th, an 8-hour lecture. It's sort of my annual functional medicine update. I'm going to talk about Ozempic and alternatives to GLP-1 agonists and the dangers that these drugs present. I'll talk to you about the latest in mitochondrial medicine and how to support the mitochondria without these GLP-1 agonists. Talk about the microbiome, and we'll talk a little bit more about this chrono-nutrition, how to better optimize certain supplements. We'll talk about inflammaging and senolytic therapies, how to maximize your health span. A new section on, a lot of this is new, a new section on COVID and cardiovascular health. We're seeing a lot of clotting disorders and cardiovascular issues, both post-COVID and because of the vaccine. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about endocrinology and how to treat things like osteoporosis and the dangers of how people are doing hormone replacement therapy. And I'm also going to talk to you about how practitioners can save hundreds of hours in practice using AI for soap notes and stuff like that and developing protocols. So I'll talk about that. All right, let's get to some questions here. The first question, does Omega Liquid need to be refrigerated? And the answer is no, it really doesn't. It needs to be in a glass bottle that doesn't get a lot of light, so a brown glass bottle. and it needs to be at room temperature because heat will break it down. But if it's kept room temperature after you open the bottle, it's fine. Another tidbit about omega oils, though, if you burp it up and you're getting that sort of burping, what you can do is put it in the refrigerator or freezer and take it at the beginning of a meal, and that has greatly reduced the upset, the regurgitation that some people get with fish oil. Let's see, does salivary and urine pH affect vitamin absorption? Absolutely, that's a good question. So your body's pH is very tightly controlled. However, bodies tend towards more one than another, and if you tend to be more acidic, which most people are, then you want your minerals in a protein matrix. So magnesium glycinate, for example, tends to be better if your body is more acidic. Magnesium citrate is fine, but citrate can increase the body's acidity a little bit. But citrate does get absorbed into the cell very readily, so that is a good one to take if you're specifically trying to support the citric acid cycle, or the Krebs cycle, or the mitochondria. But yes, typically though, what absorbs the pH, or what affects absorption of vitamins and minerals and nutrients the most, is your gut pH. You have to have a working gut in order to absorb most of these nutrients, which means you have to have enough hydrochloric acid production. You have to have enough bile production. You have to have enough trypsin and chymotrypsin. So your pancreas needs to be working. And that's part of the 7R program. That's a whole nother talk of healing leaky gut and supporting the digestion of yourself and all of your patients. That is what's going to absorb the absorption as well as the utilization of supplements in your body. So another question here that's great on children and toddlers. I have one of my absolute loves is doing preconception and family medicine and pediatrics. And so, yes, children and toddlers often need some supplements, especially nowadays with the brains not forming correctly in utero and all of the insults. So a little, my favorites are like liquid CoQ10, or chewables CoQ10s, chewable glutathione. You can mix a lot of this stuff up into a formula for children and for toddlers and for infants as well. So I've got lots of protocols. For all of those protocols, you'll need to take my classes and get that information, because that's not something that I can just give out unless you're a patient or a student. But yes, many, sulforaphane and methylation support, so liquid multivitamins and liquid minerals. Kids and children and infants are just as nutrient deficient, if not more, than adults, because they're growing at a faster rate and their need is much more. Is it possible to be harmful to take some supplements for too long? Absolutely. This is what I was talking about earlier about, rotating. I don't know as it's going to be, it's going to cause like kidney disease or cancer or things like that. But your body does adapt after a while to some supplements. So your question of licorice root or berberine, absolutely. It's kind of nice to cycle those through sometimes. Licorice root, we know, can increase blood pressure because of its effect on aldosterone and 11-beta hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase, and the conversion of cortisol to cortisone. Yes, if you do want to be careful that you're not taking something that you don't really need. So that is something that I would be aware of. And then, and as I was saying earlier, you can cycle through probiotics. I do think that you should, this is one of the pre-webinar questions. I do think you should rotate your probiotics, and making sure you're taking probiotics with prebiotics as well. So that's all really, really important. So let's see, can I speak about SPMs, for joint pain? And SPMs are different, modulators, if you will. They're extracts of fish oils, and they have particularly more potent anti-inflammatory effects. In some of the studies that I've read, if you're taking high doses of fish oils, you probably want to do the SPM separately. But if you're taking moderate amounts of fish oils, you're not going to compete for absorption or anything like that. So I would take it with a fish oil for the most part. Let's see. So there's another one. So for specific recommendations about supplements and minerals and stuff, please feel free to email me. I don't want to answer any specific ones. I want to just keep this pretty general. But for the specific ones that I recommend, please feel free, to email me. I'd be happy to share with you, some of those specific brands that I use that I know are quality. So I think, let's see, that's pretty much. Let me get to some of the pre-webinar. The last question that came in. What do I think of immunoglobulin supplementation? Yeah, I think this immunoglobulins in the form of colostrum or isolated immunoglobulins can be very helpful when dealing with dysbiosis and leaky gut, because immunoglobulins' role in the gut, if you're taking it as a supplement, is to bind the bad bacteria in the gut and provide some protection. So yes, it can be very helpful in, as I said, in the form of colostrum or some kind of, IgG or IgA derivative. You do want to be careful if you have severe leaky gut, because those immunoglobulins can leak into your body and into the subluminal layer, and can potentially trigger some autoimmune reactions. So you do want to be careful about that. But in general, I think they're very helpful. Okay, and then we have some supplement questions here. What are some of my favorite anti-cancer supplements? I don't want to talk specifically about cancer, but in general, the functional medicine idea is that, and theory is that if you are optimally healthy, then you will not have disease, right? The best way to avoid all diseases, including cancer, is to make sure that every cell is functioning optimally. What I will tell you, just as a quick tidbit and tip, is that probably the best bang for your buck to address cancers of all types is to make sure that your methylation is absolutely spot on, because without enough methyl groups, then those cancer genes are being read. And so depending on your genetics, you need enough methylfolate and enough methylcobalamin, and you need enough SAMe, and you need enough phosphatidylcholine. You want to support your entire methylation pathways. And we do that through lab testing, and we do that through multiple mechanisms. So I talked a little bit about extended release and sustained release dietary supplements. There's ways, oftentimes they're really expensive because they have this proprietary slow release technology. And while it can help the area under the curve, why be lazy about it? You can actually increase the area under the curve yourself by taking it multiple times a day, or even just twice a day, and getting better benefit with maybe even cheaper. So while those, not saying that they're not sound science, and there's also ways that you can do it yourself, as I said, with taking supplements with fiber. The one caveat about some slow release stuff is that if you have increased transit times, a lot of times they never get broken down. If you don't have enough hydrochloric acid, if you don't have enough bile, if your digestion is not healthy, as I've said before, then those slow release can work against you, because then you don't absorb them. It requires the hydrochloric acid, and it requires you to have the bile acids in order to break that matrix down and release the nutrient. And a lot of people just goes right through them because they're not digesting very well. So let's see. If you guys have specific questions about, about your own protocols and stuff like that, absolutely, you can come, I'd be happy to do a consult or whatever, but this is kind of beyond the scope of this. But for somebody recovering from mold toxins, there's a lot of different things that you want to do to make sure that your gut is, you don't have leaky gut, you're binding it, you're excreting it properly, and that your antioxidant and anti-inflammatory mechanisms are really, really good. So, and then I already highlighted supplements to be taken with or without food, and kind of the somewhat dangers of potential dangers of the magnesium stearate. But as I've said, I don't see any issues with those long term, and so they've really been shown to the benefit far outweighs any risk. So. I did have somebody that raised their hand. I don't know if you're still there, but if you had a question or a comment, go ahead and put it in the Q&A. If not, let's see. I think we're pretty much through this one. So I think that's it. All right. I'll check the Q&As one more time. If you have any questions that you didn't get answered, or you wanted to, give me an email, please feel free to contact me. I'm here. You can go to my website. You can give us a call. My email here is it's not on here. It's on the website, but it's HHC at Dr. Brandon Lundell. So you guys have been awesome. This is recorded, so I'll send a recording out for everybody probably next week. And stay on the lookout for more of these. I'm going to be doing more of these educational talks on, how to get the most out of functional medicine, and I love dispelling myths and fads in functional medicine. It's one of my favorite things to do. So, so please share this video too when you get it with somebody. If you think somebody could benefit from my services, either as a patient or as a student, please, send them our way, and we'll take good care of them. So it's been fun, and let's see. I think that's it. So I'll see everybody next time. All right, take care. Thanks for joining.